The internet and digital media are now central to the way in which young people participate. It's where young people get their information and news. It's often where they can express their own perspectives about civic or political issues.
Right now, like, this is how we treat each other as equals.
Morning, everybody. Welcome. All right, so one of the questions that you guys...
Digital media, yes, it's something that they're entrenched in, but an educator has to purposefully teach them how to use it.
So while young people know how to tweet and text, not all youth know how to do so in an impactful and an informed way, especially towards civic and political ends.
Because we're not just talking about likes here, we're talking about people thinking about how your perspective is different than my perspective, and how maybe we have something in common that I didn't get before.
Let's think about, what is the takeaway? What point is Charlie trying to make?
We see from our research that there's been a sizable increase in young people's engagement in civic and political life online, and we call these changes participatory politics. What this means is that young people are getting opportunities to create and share media, to enter into dialogues, often not structured by elites or formal institutions. They can do this on their own terms and in their own ways.
Unfortunately, we find from the research that these opportunities are not equitably distributed. So on average, white students, middle-class students, and students in higher track classes are provided these kinds of opportunities, but they are not provided to all young people across the board.
If I were white, would I have to worry about if I'm going to make it home that night? If a cop's going to approach me?
I think young people can put information out into the world, but they don't always have an editor to help them think about a pointed strategy for what reaction and what actions they want to get in return for their media.
So a couple things I see. Lengthwise, we're much more in the online op-ed territory, which is fun.
Commentaries are a natural first product to get your feet wet, because you're saying, let's start with something that you know, your story, and let's build from there about why other people might care about your story. That's the argument you want them to take away from what you're saying.
Obviously, like, it's really fulfilling, and like it makes me feel like more powerful, and like my voice like matters. So yeah.
We're seeing young people use digital and social media in all sorts of interesting ways to express their civic voice and agency. So, for example, they're investigating issues that matter to them and circumstances that they encounter in their lives using research to do so. They're producing and spreading content, whether it's their own original stories or if they're curating and then boosting content that they see from their peers or other news sources. And finally, in some cases, we're seeing young people mobilize their communities behind specific actions or activities that matter to them.
If you guys have already done your tweet, feel free to go ahead and retweet, quote tweet, whatever you want.
Literacy in language is not just spoken or heard. Knowing how to create a meme or knowing how to create a video or an infographic, it's necessary to be as fluent in those languages as it is writing or speaking.
3 challenges come to mind for youth in the digital age. Number 1 is something that we talk about as digital afterlife. So when they make choices today as young people for what they want to share about themselves, how do educators and others work with young people to imagine what the consequences for that might be later on in their own trajectories, both professional and personal. Number 2 is really a tension that we're seeing between free speech and hate speech. It's also something that's being worked out moment to moment in social media in terms of the kind of speech that young people encounter and how they exercise their right to free speech in such a way that they can be heard. And then finally, there's this question of credibility. How do young people determine the credibility of the information that they encounter?
There are a few things that educators can do. They can provide young people with opportunities to analyze and evaluate online information and judge the credibility of that information. They can provide opportunities for young people to dialogue about pressing and controversial issues on and offline. They can help young people learn to produce compelling and impactful media and circulate that media, and also understand that the strategies and tactics for addressing an issue or responding to an issue to create change.
It is harder and harder these days to have a conversation with someone you disagree with. And this is really a tool not just to speak to your own circles, but to speak to people who don't know you and get them to come away with context that may make a change in the world that you share.
There's a lot of evidence now from our research that the distribution of activities by young people, civically and politically online, is quite equitable across different groups. So if we want young people to be involved in society and in making the world a better place, and if we want all groups of young people to be involved, digital engagement creates a great opportunity.